that evening, when my husband came home from work, he abruptly said, "I want a divorce." I responded, "Okay, here are the divorce papers," and put them on the table.
Friend,
He stared at me, completely baffled. I looked back at him, just as confused.
That doing like some what's this?
wait, aren't we getting a divorce?
My name is Mary, a 27-year-old office worker. I met my husband, Matt, through work. He was employed at a client company I was in charge of. As we worked together, our relationship deepened, and before we knew it, we started dating. 3 years later, we got married. Now we are newlyweds, having been married for about 6 months. Matt is generally a quiet and reserved type, never meddling in whatever I do. As a result, I could immerse myself in my hobbies and go out for drinks with friends without needing permission. However, there was one request he had. He wanted me to become a homemaker once we got married. He admitted he was completely inept at household chores and wanted me to take over. I wasn't particularly attached to my job and was curious about the idea of retiring upon marriage, so I agreed to his request. Since then, I focused on being a full-time homemaker every day. I diligently prepare breakfast, lunch boxes, and dinner, constantly exploring new recipes to avoid monotony. My husband was pleased with my cooking, often saying it really helps me every day, and we were enjoying a harmonious married life. But amidst all this, there was one problem. Initially, my Mile was kind, but gradually she started to show her true colors and began to harass me. Moreover, she would come to our house unannounced during the day. With my husband, lad at work, I was the only one to deal with her. She would criticize everything, saying up the cleaning isn't done properly, or about my cooking, the taste is too bland. When I retorted, "Matt is satisfied and grateful," she would counter with, "He's just astounded. He thinks it's pointless to say anything. You should realize that some bizarre logic." In her eyes, her son Matt could do no wrong. He was always top of his class and graduated from a prestigious public university, making him the apple of his mother's eye. Perhaps that's why she's so overprotective, frequently dropping by unannounced to give me various instructions and leaving only after seeing her son's face. Honestly, it's too much, but the most troublesome part is her constant nagging about grandchildren. She probably wants to see a grandchild from her beloved son as soon as possible. Every time we meet, she pressures me, asking, "When will you have a grandchild? When are you going to get pregnant?" But honestly, I can't fulfill her expectations. Actually, my husband doesn't like children. He also doesn't particularly want children of his own. I wasn't extremely keen on having children either, so I agreed with my husband's view. At constantly being told by my Mile to have children soon. I reluctantly discussed it with my husband. He seemed annoyed but couldn't dismiss his mother's request outright, so he cooperated in trying to conceive. However, despite our efforts, we struggled to have a child. Personally, I believe the pressure from my mile was a source of stress, but she seemed unaware and kept pushing me harder. You must be defective as a woman. You barren woman, she would say, unable to bear it any longer. I discussed it with my husband. He said, I'm tired of spending time and effort on trying to have a child, and he told his mother, we don't want children, so please stop interfering. His mother was quite shocked to hear such words directly from her son. After that, she stopped coming to our house altogether. From the stress of my motocity, I thought peace had finally arrived. But then a new problem arose. Suddenly, my husband's behavior started to seem strange. He's always been quiet, but lately, he's become even more so. When I talk to him, he just responds with IU or OA, nothing more than 2 words. Then, out of the blue, he started criticizing my actions like, aren't you going to too many drinking parties lately? And gradually, he began to make emotionally abusive comments. Excel again with your hobbies. You really are a person with too much free time. Must be nice being a housewife. No stress, right? His emotionally abusive remarks became so harsh that one day. I couldn't help but talk back. Why are you being so confrontational? At this, my husband's face turned red with rage. Why are you talking back? Do you know who you owe for being able to eat? Saying so, he recently started kicking walls and throwing things, though not at me. He'd never thrown such hysterics before, so I was utterly bewildered. But that was it. He didn't do anything more and stormed out of the house. The next morning, I found him sleeping on the living room sofa. It seemed he had returned home late at night. That's when he woke up and saw me, he continued to be unusually silent. He ate his toast in silence, fearing that speaking to him might cause another outburst. I stayed quiet and just watched him leave for work. And then that evening, when he returned from work, he suddenly said, I want a divorce.
I can't live here anymore.
He coldly declared, discarding the words at me. I said, fine, here's the divorce paper, and placed the divorce paper, which I took out of the drawer, on the table. My husband looked at me dumbfounded.
What is this?
Are we getting a divorce?
It seemed that this was not the reaction my husband had anticipated. And,
He probably thought that by mentioning divorce, I would break down, apologize, and express a desire to fix our relationship. But such a convenient scenario was unrealistic. At the moment he lashed out at objects yesterday, our marital life had effectively ended. Seeing my husband kick the wall and throw things, my love for him cooled instantly. It was as if I had woken up from a delusion. This morning, after seeing my husband off to work, I immediately went to get the divorce papers. I filled out my part and tucked it away in a drawer. I planned to pack my things, leave the divorce papers, and leave quickly, but it was convenient that my husband brought up divorce first.
are you serious?
Were you joking about the divorce?
No, of course not.
I deliberately provoked my husband. I recently realized that whenever my husband feels even slightly ridiculed, he gets extremely angry, his face turning red. Until now, as a married couple, we had maintained a certain balance, so his high pride and other flaws weren't very apparent. But as our first anniversary was approaching, it seemed that time had peeled away the veneer, revealing the less pleasant aspects and true nature of each other. While angry, my husband still signed the divorce papers, his voice shaky. "Are you really okay with this?" "Here, now we're really divorced, okay?" "Are you sure?" "Thank you. I don't think we can repair our relationship anymore." I quickly retrieved the divorce papers, thinking they must not be torn. Hence, for my safety, I temporarily took refuge at my parents' house. About a week later, I began discussions about the division of assets with my husband in the presence of the lawyer I had hired. So, splitting the assets in half comes to about this much.
Wow, that's it. Really. Because you didn't work, there's hardly anything.
It's because your income is low, isn't it?
Frankly, I always thought your income was low for your age.
And this are people just because I've been lenient, you think you can push your lucks.
My husband looked like he was about to grab me, but the lawyer intervened.
If you lay a hand on her now, we'll immediately report you for assault and battery.
Thanks to the lawyer's firm stance, my husband calmed down.
Also, please hurry up and move out of that house.
Oh, you mean you want to sell it and split the money? No way.
I'm going to live there.
What? What are you talking about? That house is in my name.
Yeah.
Have you forgotten? My father bought it for us as a wedding gift. So it's not part of the property division and it's mine.
That's not fair. So,
That's Spirally Storts. I've sold that house. Please leave quickly, or else I'll have to report you.
that's a problem. Where am I supposed to live if I don't have that house, so, and that's it, if,
What? It's not like I'm telling you to leave this very moment. Just rent a place.
but that's not,
Eh? Is there a problem?
My husband, looking uncomfortable, revealed a shocking fact.
actually, I quit my job a few months ago.
So you can't rent a place because you're unemployed?
Yeah, so can I stay in that house until I find a job? And,
Are you kidding? Did you not listen? I've already sold the house. It's all your own doing.
Find a job, even if it's just part-time, and rent a place or go back to your overprotective mile.
that's, help me out here.
He begged with tears in his eyes, but I remained unmoved, saying, the discussion is over, and left the place with my lawyer. As for my ex-husband, I heard he ended up with a tragic fate. My ex-husband, hindered by his pride, couldn't bring himself to take up a part-time job, so he returned to his parents' house.
I'm so embarrassed. I can't even walk around the neighborhood. She complained constantly.
He kicked a hole in the wall of the house. This led to his father-in-law losing his temper, disowning him and throwing all of his belongings outside, effectively kicking him out. My ex-husband, not being good at social interactions and having no close friends to rely on, ended up with nowhere to go and was barely surviving in a manga cafe. His money was dwindling, and he was becoming increasingly desperate. I'm really in trouble and need help, he pleaded, but I simply responded, it's no longer my concern, and hung up. I then blocked his number and took out a restraining order against him, just to be safe. I don't know what happened to my ex-husband after that, but his excessive pride probably hasn't led him to a good life. Well, it's no longer any of my concern anyway. As for me, I returned to my parents' house and started focusing on my hobby of making jewelry. I began posting my work on social media, participating in pop-up events, and gradually gaining recognition. Although it's still a modest start, I've begun receiving orders. Interestingly, I met a leather shoemaker at one of these events, and we started dating. We plan to get married soon. But unlike my ex-husband, my new partner is cheerful, approachable, and genuine. But from my first failed marriage, I've realized that life is about doing what you love and enjoying it without enduring unnecessary hardships. Going forward, I hope to build a wonderful home with my new partner, respecting each other's dreams.